All right, we'll start again. My name is Dr. Michael Hufford. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Harm Reduction Therapeutics. In terms of my disclosures, Harm Reduction Therapeutics is a nonprofit pharmaceutical company that we formed in 2017 after we learned of the FDA's interest in seeing a naloxone product be taken over the counter. After fundraising for over a year, I personally pitched more than 50 times to a variety of philanthropies and other organizations. We received an unrestricted grant of $3.42 million from Purdue Pharma to develop our OTC naloxone product. I firmly believe what Mary Lasker said, the famous philanthropist, is true, which is money is frozen energy, and you unfreeze it when you pay people to work. So we were extraordinarily grateful for the support, and we are now running forward as quickly as we can. So our mission is to prevent opioid overdose deaths by making low-price naloxone available to everyone over the counter. We have a nonprofit mission. We're a 501c3. Our team, thankfully, has more than a 20-year history of prescription to OTC switch successes, where it has been shown time and time again that over-the-counter availability increases access. The good news for someone like myself trying to push this forward, I'm surrounded by colleagues that have deep expertise and experience doing this, which is less of a good news to some of the existing companies with naloxone products that are reluctant to see the product be taken over the counter. I'm going to be driving home this theme of cost and access, and that we need to keep our eye on that prize. I thought it was remarkable yesterday, the verbal contortions you heard from industry trying to tell you that cost doesn't matter, trying to tell you that over-the-counter access somehow won't actually improve access. Those contortions I thought were worthy of Cirque du Soleil. I'm here to try to present the alternative scenario that we see time and time again, that over-the-counter availability does increase access. But I think to fully understand the power of that, we need to understand naloxone in the context of the opioid epidemic. So I'm just going to make a few quick points on cost and access to heroin. So a bag of heroin today will set you back about $5, the cost of a pumpkin spice latte. This is where the cost of acquisition continues to fall. So heroin has gotten less and less expensive. The supply chain, both for heroin and fentanyl, is global in nature and every bit as robust as the coffee beans that you grind up and consume at your local cafe. So this is, and as outlined in Dreamland, I thought very compellingly, even the retail infrastructure for heroin distribution has seen dramatic innovation over time. So heroin, decreased cost, increasing access. How does that compare to naloxone? Just to put this in historic perspective, 1971, President Nixon, and cutting edge technology at the time was a very rudimentary scientific calculator. That was when naloxone when naloxone received FDA approval. It went off patent under Reagan, and the Apple was now your cutting edge, the Apple original Mac. Widespread use by paramedics intranasally, lest any of us believe erroneously that intranasal drug delivery is somehow innovative. It is not in general, nor is it with respect to naloxone administration. So today we have a variety of different products, and we'll be talking more about those here quickly. I don't need to belabor the point. Opioid deaths continue to rise, as does the price of naloxone. This is from Meg Terrell in an excellent investigative article she published looking at those prices over time. And just to drive home a point, I'm trained as a clinical psychologist in addiction. And so I'm going to put that hat on just for a moment and encourage you to fight the anchoring heuristic. So the anchoring heuristic is when someone tells you the price of something is $1,000 and then it's priced at $99, you anchor that estimate of whether $99 is a value based on the fact that it used to be $1,000, right? That's a fundamental way that our brains process information. So when you see some manufacturers have recently lowered their prices, I would encourage you to think of it in those terms. The fact that something never should have costed $4,500 does not mean that it's now a bargain at $100 and some dollars. Likewise, the extent to which something has already been price gouged and now is available for $140, the promise to not further price gouge that price should not be the cause of patting anyone on their back. This was published in the New England Journal of Medicine a couple of years ago, talking about that price increase. And I want to focus just on nasal spray for a moment, just so everyone's aware. Just by gauge of size, that's a nickel beside the actual container that holds the naloxone intranasal formulation. I picked 5 cents because at commercial scale, the amount of solution, the cost there is about 4 cents. The delivery, just to be clear, just so we are all aware, that is an Aptar generic intranasal device. It's very clever. It's used in a variety of different prescription products. But just to be clear, there hasn't been a lot of innovation on that front either. When Emergent Biosolutions acquired Adapt Pharma, I think it's worth pointing out that they did so at the cost of $635 million with an additional $100 million in post-acquisition milestones. And as a businessman myself doing drug development for the past 20 years, I can assure you that you buy companies because you expect them to increase in value. Where is that value to be derived from this generic drug being delivered intranasally? Well, I would suggest to you there are 2 paths. One is by getting it approved co-prescription, where it could recognize hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue over the next few years. But I would also point you toward an interview with Bloomberg Press on August 29th, shortly after the acquisition, where the CEO described schools as a growth opportunity. So I assure you that one of the very first markets that I intend to steal from Emergent Biosolutions is public schools, whose price they pay for these products, I assure you, absolutely does matter. I also want to talk about access. You've already heard a lot of this, and so I'm not going to dwell on it. Standing orders do not equal adequate access today. Time and time again, when you survey pharmacies, many don't stock it. Many pharmacists are unaware of its status through standing orders. We also know that stigma continues to affect access, as was touched on repeatedly. Thought I'd end on this cartoon saying I have the invisible hand of the market on line 2, should I put it through. I want to just end with a few final thoughts of things I believe. Since I have the microphone for another 4 minutes, bear with me. So I believe, despite being the co-founder of a nonprofit pharmaceutical company, I strongly believe in capitalism. Profits drive innovation, and innovation is producing, as we speak, life-saving treatments that are transforming medicine. But that capital put at risk to develop those innovations deserves to be returned to investors many-fold. I've been fortunate to raise venture capital, and that's the very promise I make when you're developing innovative therapies. But just as innovators are creating the cures of tomorrow, there's another group, though thankfully a much smaller one, that follows in the wake of these innovators and uses an imperfect system of incentives to wring profits by exploiting this system. And I'm sorry to say this is the state of the naloxone market today. I also believe, quite contrary to popular opinion, that the pharmaceutics industry is fundamentally a noble enterprise. The opportunity to develop new medicines is both an honor and an obligation. But we do so under a social contract where you recoup profits over the lifespan of a patent, with the expectations that the price should then fall as the risk is removed. I believe your work matters. This committee and ones like it can affect policy that in turn can cause lives to be saved or lost. I also, for what it's worth, believe this room should be packed, but the stigma surrounding addiction takes many forms. Martin Shkreli, in his price gouging of Daraprim and his pharma bro persona, made a perfect boogeyman for the media's fleeting attention span around price gouging. Likewise, when Mylan gouged the price of the EpiPen, likewise, it rightly pulled at our heartstrings, right? Imagining children in the midst of unstoppable anaphylaxis not having access to the EpiPen. But make no mistake, it's our collective acceptance of the price gouging of naloxone. If it would have received equal scrutiny to the public, if only we believed collectively these lives had equal weight. And lastly, I believe that if the free market, composed in part of individuals whose companies are represented in this room, will not do everything in their power to reduce the price and increase access through over-the-counter availability, then I assure you my colleagues and I at Harm Reduction Therapeutics intend to do just that. Why? I believe that cost and access matter. They always have, they always will, and I would implore you not to believe otherwise.
Thank you very much.